have some comments.
Actually, Mr. Weaver may find this a bit of a surprise. I don't think he did anything wrong either. When the call came in, what was said was, how can you protest your own bid? There's no remedy to be given based on an error on a bid sheet. Now, if as a private business owner, I honestly don't know what I would have done. He had every right to ask the commission to do something else. I don't think he did anything wrong during that situation. But we've got to be true to our own process. We've got to say, there's no remedy that we can grant you based on an error on a tab sheet.
And I would say to that, I had some good conversations with contractors, and they explained to me, listen, if it's a bid, you're just trying to get some bids to do something on your own, one of your own projects, and it's not a technical sealed bid, then you can go back. You can do things that you want to do, and I mean the right thing to do is not just to negotiate with one contractor, but give everybody the opportunity. That is what I was trying to follow. But it came to my understanding in the sealed bid process, once it's opened, it's open. And that was what the contractors who I talked to said.
Exactly.
It depends on the process that you're using. Is it a sealed bid process or is it just a bid process? And that became the issue. But Commissioner Robertson.
Well, the first thing you alluded to, of course, is just taking quotations. If you're an individual and you're taking quotations, you can negotiate, you can get them down as reasonable, and you can go back and you can do all sorts of things. But a sealed bid is technically a sealed bid. However, I was told, and someone can correct me on staff, I was told the way the county, and I've only been back on board a year, and we didn't do it this way years ago. I was told that now we take unit prices, and I'm looking at Joy because I've discussed this with her, and if it's cubic yards of dirt, if it's cubic yards of asphalt, we take unit prices. And a lot of stuff we look at, and I'm assuming that this error can be documented, that he did make an error, and I know Commissioner Valentino referred to it as a historical unit price. But actually, my interpretation was it was actually a unit price on an item that we could prove was an error. Is that right, Joy? And I would have never went any further if I hadn't have felt that way.
We could look by comparison and see that it was out of.
It was out of line with every other line item on that item of every other bid, wasn't it?
That's correct.
And that was the facts I'd gotten, and I was so assured that it was a proven error. And the only analogy I used, and I have been told by a lot of agencies that I've turned in sealed bids, and I've said at bid openings, and I put up bid bonds that require a lot of money, and you can lose that money if you renege. And I've been assured by agencies, hey, you're too low. I wasn't, but if I had been, you're unreasonably low, and you can't do the job for this, and you're out of line with every other bidder, and we're going to let you bow out. And so there's been historical reasons for letting people out for other reasons, and I kind of asked that the other day. If you can rebid or let people out that are absolutely too low and can't do it, is there not a precedent set that you can consider that somebody is absolutely too high on an item and document they made an error? Now, true, maybe we can't rebid based on just the fact they made an error, but I was thoroughly convinced we could prove that was an error internally, or I never would have considered it.
I want to echo what Commissioner Robertson said. That was the same issue of mine, and I don't think it ever came out in the press one way or the other that it was a documentable, provable error. It wasn't just simply I made a mistake. I do understand the process does not allow for that, staff, to me there wasn't any error in staff in my discussions. I appreciated staff being very upfront with me on the issues, but the issue that seemed to me is that the mistake that was happening was a documented error that was not causing anybody else problems but the actual taxpayer, and I think that was something I had a tremendous amount of problems with. But Commissioner Valentino?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a question for Amy and Joy. Is the bid process obviously up through the time you open a sealed bid? Yes. Is the bid process then continued to be considered a bid process from the time you've made your judgment on who's ranked first, second, and third to when the county commission takes a look at it a week or 2 weeks later? And is the bid process continue after that county commission meeting, after we've looked at it? Because I don't know if the bid process was violated or not if due process, if the problem was that staff made an error with this, or did not make an error with the protesting party, but it was after the decision had been made, does it really matter, is my question.
There were no this is a sealed bid process. Basically, you open the bids, low bid gets the award.
But they protested after the opening.
The protest, well, there was a phone call made, and the question was, and I guess the conversation was, there was an error on the tab sheet. And the response from our purchasing staff was correctly, we cannot give you any remedy based on an error in the unit price. By the ordinance, we're not going to give you remedy on that. The next available course of action for Mr. Weaver, he was correct, was to ask the Board of County Commissioners for some remedy. And as your county attorney told you, you could do exactly what you did.
Well, wait a minute. My understanding is that he was told by some that he had a remedy through a protest process, and then he was told by others that he did not, which is why I said there was a flaw in the process.
No, this is,
Well, I just want to address that one question.
unless,
Told me that I could there was no option to protest. The only person that said there was an option that I should have protested is the county administrator.
Which that concerns me, why he would sit there and say that last Thursday when that wasn't even an option, other for him to look good in the press since he's not happy about going out the door.
I want to get back on the situation. I guess, do we have any other questions?
Well, so my question still, I heard from Mr. Weaver, but I'm getting a conflicting answer from Amy. She's telling me there was no breach in the process.
Amy or Claudia want to speak to that?
I just don't think there was a flaw in the process in the least little bit. I do think the process was followed all the way to its conclusion.
Amy, respectfully, I received word from 2 other staff members that said there was. Now, how does this county commission come through with a cogent response to and try to act and behave in the public's eye as being responsible if we're getting mixed signals from staff?
I apologize. I don't know of any staff member that did say there was a flaw in the
Joy,
process.
would you like to come up and speak to that?
I believe our conversations have included discussions that if there's a breach, if there's a perceived breach in the process, it would be that he was given 2 different directions, and that was my understanding, that he had been given 2 different directions, and that was the information.
Well, that to me,
I think if we need to take this topic up with discussion if we're going to discuss where we go. I understand where you're going, Gene, but I think we're getting as we move forward and we evaluate what happened with the bid process, we can do that when you want to come.
Mr. Chairman, I'm anxious to help work with you on making a revision, but and I hope we have support to do it. I think we're on the same page there. But on this matter here, I stand my ground that the bid process was violated, and that's my point.
I understand, Commissioner White.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move that we rescind the cancellation of the bid award and award the contract to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, Gulf